You feel it before you even open your eyes. That shift in the air, so subtle yet so heavy that it feels like a hand pressing down on your chest. The room you fell asleep in feels different now, like it doesn't belong to you anymore. The silence isn't comforting, it's too thick, too dense, like something unseen is breathing in the same space you thought was yours. And even though your rational mind whispers that it's nothing, your soul knows something has changed. This is not imagination. This is not stress. This is not just waking up on the wrong side of the bed. This is the first warning, the first ripple across the fabric of your spiritual space, a disturbance that doesn't leave scratches on walls or slam doors. It moves through the invisible, altering the very air you breathe. Long before it touches your body, it touches your awareness, because that's where it matters most. You're not crazy for feeling it. You're awake because of it. There's a moment, a half second after you notice the heaviness, when your instincts scream. It's the same ancient survival mechanism that kept our ancestors alive when predators stalked the night. Not everything that hunts needs to be seen. Some things are felt. Some dangers announce themselves by stealing the air first, and you are feeling it now. Tolkien understood this reality better than most. His great evils didn't always arrive with armies or fire. Sometimes they crept in like a fog. Sometimes they were nothing more than a gaze, unseen but undeniable, a gaze that watched, that waited, that bent reality itself without lifting a single finger. When Frodo felt the eye of Sauron searching, he didn't see it. He felt it. It distorted everything around him, made the very air tremble with tension. That's what you're encountering when the night around you changes without a sound. The energy you trusted to keep you safe has been breached. And the breach doesn't announce itself with a roar, it whispers, suffocating, subtle, sinister. Think back. How many times have you brushed it off? How many times have you felt the air grow heavier, only to turn over and pull the blanket tighter around you, pretending that weight pressing against your spirit wasn't real? How many times have you told yourself, I'm just imagining things, while your soul screamed a silent warning you refused to hear? Because ignoring the change doesn't make it disappear. It gives it power. The unseen thrives on your doubt, on your hesitation. It counts on you to rationalize away your instincts, to silence your soul's warnings with distractions, with technology, with the busy excuses that daylight makes so easy. But at night, there's no noise left to drown it out. And in that silence, the truth creeps closer. You are not just imagining things. The heaviness you feel is real. The chill that wasn't there before is real. The sense that the space you thought was yours has been altered is real. You are feeling the first step of something entering. And if you don't pay attention now, if you close your eyes and pretend the feeling will pass, it won't. It will grow. It will anchor itself deeper. And by the time you finally face it, it may not just be the air that has changed. It may be you. This is why your awareness is your greatest shield. The act of noticing, truly noticing, weakens the unseen forces that rely on stealth to invade. Because they cannot fully touch what is fully aware. They cannot fully manipulate what is fully conscious. So when the air changes, don't just shiver and wait for it to pass. Pause, breathe, name it, acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I feel you. And in doing so, you anchor yourself against it. You stop being prey. You become presence. If you've ever felt the air grow heavy at night, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they are not alone. Because the air doesn't just grow heavy for no reason. It grows heavy when something steps closer, something curious, something hungry, something that has noticed you noticing it, and now must decide if you are weak enough to approach or strong enough to leave alone. The next time you wake and feel that pressure, don't reach for the light out of fear. Reach for your awareness. Let it grow. Let it solidify. Let it push back. Because the air is the first battlefield, and your attention is the first weapon. But there's more. The change in the air is only the beginning. It's a signal, yes, but it's also an invitation, an opening. And the real danger is what comes after, when the air has already shifted and something starts moving closer, closer than you ever thought it could, and that's what we'll face next. Because once you feel the air grow heavy, it's no longer a question of if you're being observed. It's a question of what exactly is watching you now. You lie there frozen. The weight in the room is undeniable now, pressing against your chest, filling your lungs with something you can't name. You glance around, hoping to catch some logical explanation. A shadow, a draft, a misplaced thought, but nothing comes, nothing moves, nothing speaks. And yet, somewhere deep in the marrow of your being, you know, you are no longer alone. It doesn't make sense. Nothing has changed visibly. The room looks the same. The furniture is untouched. The door is still closed. But your body knows before your mind does. The hair on your arms rises. A chill crawls down your spine even though the temperature hasn't dropped. Every instinct inside you is screaming, not in words, but in a language older than memory itself. You are being watched. This kind of awareness is not taught. It is not logical. It is not the result of imagination. It is something encoded deep within the human soul, from a time when survival depended not on what you could see, but on what you could sense. Our ancestors didn't survive predators because they were fast or strong. They survived because they felt the unseen eyes in the night, long before the threat ever revealed itself. And even now, in our modern homes surrounded by concrete and technology, that primal sense still flickers awake when it needs to. Tolkien captured this invisible terror masterfully through the Eye of Sauron, an unblinking, omnipresent force that saw everything without ever stepping into the light. Frodo didn't see Sauron standing before him. He felt the eye, piercing, searching, invading, not with hands or weapons, but with awareness itself. That is the kind of observation you are feeling now. You are being seen in a way that strips away the walls you think protect you. You are being seen as you truly are, raw, vulnerable, exposed. And it is not a passive gaze, it is searching for something. It is studying you. It is measuring your awareness. Because here's the secret no one wants to admit. Those who move in the shadows do not strike randomly. They choose. They observe. They wait for the soul that feels the presence but refuses to respond. They wait for the moment when you talk yourself out of your instincts. When you say to yourself, "It's nothing. I'm overreacting. It's all in my head." That denial, that tiny betrayal of your own awareness, is the invitation they need to come closer. The watchers of the unseen world are patient. They do not rush. They do not need to frighten you into action. They only need you to doubt yourself long enough for their energy to wrap itself tighter around yours. Every time you pretend you didn't feel it, every time you ignore the tightening in your chest, every time you laugh it off the next morning, you give them more ground. And they know it. That's why the feeling intensifies over time. At first, it's just the heavy air. Then it's the sense of being watched. Then maybe it's the softest sound, a creak, a breath where there should be none. Then it's the dream you can't fully remember but wake from shaking. And then it's more. They are testing the perimeter of your spirit. You think you're just lying in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. But spiritually, a very different battle is happening. One you were never taught to recognize. One you were never prepared to fight. And the only weapon you have, the one thing that can hold them back, is your ability to notice. Because presence repels presence. When you see them, really see them, they lose some of their strength. Awareness makes you less accessible, less easy to manipulate. It sharpens your energy, hardens your space, disrupts their quiet approach. They thrive on unconsciousness, on the dullness of spirit that has forgotten how to listen to its own warnings. So when you lie there, heart racing, sensing that gaze without eyes, you are standing at a crossroads. You can pretend you feel nothing, letting the watching grow deeper. Or you can confront it, not with anger or fear, but with the most powerful weapon you have, full, fearless consciousness. You are not powerless just because you cannot see. You are not helpless just because you cannot touch. You are aware. And awareness itself is a shield. But shields must be held. They must be gripped with both hands, raised high, and kept steady, even when your arms tremble with fear. The watchers hope you will drop your shield. They hope you will retreat into sleep, into denial, into distraction. Because once you turn your back on that primal warning, they can step into your space fully, no longer needing to hide. And then the feeling of being watched will become something more, something heavier, something far more difficult to ignore. This is why Tolkien's heroes were so often called not to fight with swords first, but with heart, with soul, with awareness of the corruption that first slipped in unseen. It's never the armies that destroy you first. It's the small moments you dismissed, the heavy air you ignored, the silent gaze you laughed away. You are being watched, not because you are weak, but because you are seen. because your soul carries something bright enough to attract attention from the unseen world, and dangerous enough that forces you've never named would prefer to keep you asleep, numb, unaware. But you are not asleep anymore. You feel the difference. You sense the gaze. And you stand at the threshold of a choice. Ignore it, and drift deeper into the influence that has already found its way into your nights, or see it for what it is, and become something no presence dares approach without trembling. The air has grown heavy. The watchers have drawn closer, but now something else begins to awaken, something they were hoping would stay silent. Your soul is stirring, and with it, a strength older than fear itself, but that awakening has a cost. And in the next part, we will step deeper into the territory where few dare walk, where the change in the air becomes the change in you, where the war for your space becomes a war for your spirit. You may think that because nothing visibly changes, because the room looks the same, that you are safe, that the feeling will pass, that whatever coldness you felt a moment ago was just your mind playing tricks on you. But that's exactly what it wants you to believe. Because the change in the air is not random, it's not meaningless, it's not harmless. It's the first deliberate step of something entering your space, and the most dangerous thing you could do is pretend it isn't happening. The shift in the air is a signature. It is the first mark left by a presence crossing into your personal field, into the energy you unconsciously extend around yourself like an invisible shield. And when that shield is pierced, when the natural flow of your space is broken, your soul knows immediately, even if your mind races to deny it. It feels like walking into a room where an argument just happened. No words linger in the air, but the energy is thick with what was spoken. This is no different, except this presence didn't come through words. It came through intention, through attention, through focus directed precisely at you. Ancient traditions understood this long before modern science tried to explain it away. The concept of energy fields isn't new. Mystics, shamans, and wise elders spoke of thin places, spots where the veil between the seen and unseen was fragile, where spirits could slip through. Your room, your bed, your supposed sanctuary can become a thin place if you are not guarding your energy, if you are not fully present. And once the energy shifts, once the air thickens and the atmosphere bends, it's already too late for ignorance to protect you. The presence doesn't always need to reveal itself fully. It doesn't need to manifest in shadows moving across the wall or voices in your ear. Most of the time it prefers not to. It prefers the subtle invasion. It prefers to be felt, not seen. Because if it remains unseen, it remains unquestioned. And if it remains unquestioned, it remains unchallenged. Think about the times you've woken up feeling drained, heavy, confused. Think about the times you've walked into your own room and felt like you were interrupting something, like you were intruding on a conversation you couldn't hear. Think about how often you blamed it on stress, on bad dreams, on your imagination trying to fill in the gaps. But what if there were no gaps to fill? What if your senses were right all along? Tolkien wove this truth into his stories with chilling precision. It wasn't the armies that first conquered the free peoples of Middle-earth. It was the slow, creeping influence of darkness. It was the unseen hand that bent wills, that shifted hearts toward fear and despair before a single blade was drawn. The enemy worked in whispers first, in feelings that were easier to deny than to confront. By the time the visible attack came, the real damage had already been done. The same is true here. When you feel the change in the air, you are not just experiencing discomfort. You are experiencing invasion. And the worst thing you can do is rationalize it away. Because with every moment you dismiss what you feel, the presence grows bolder, it grows closer, it deepens its grip. You may find yourself becoming more irritable without reason. You may feel more exhausted after a full night's sleep. You may notice your thoughts growing darker, your fears growing louder. You may begin to forget small things, where you placed your keys, what you were about to say, why you walked into a room. These are not just the symptoms of a tired mind. They can be the marks of an energetic influence, carving tiny cracks into your spirit, weakening your sense of grounding, your sense of self. It's a slow erosion because that's how real infiltration works. Not through terror, through exhaustion, through subtlety, through familiarity, until the heaviness becomes normal, until the weight in the air feels like part of your home, part of your life, part of you, but it isn't, and it never was. The shift you feel is your chance to act before it's too late. It is your soul screaming to be heard, to be recognized, to be protected. It is your spirit throwing a flare into the night, begging you not to fall back asleep spiritually, because what enters unseen doesn't stay passive. It observes first. It adjusts to you. It learns your weaknesses. And when the time is right, it moves from feeling to influence, from presence to attachment. Have you ever woken up feeling like something was watching you in the dark? Comment below. I have felt it. Let's break the silence together. You think you're just losing a little sleep. You think you're just overreacting. But every night you ignore the warning, you allow the invader to build a home where it was never meant to exist. And then the real battles begin. Not in your room, but in your mind. In your will. In the slow creeping loss of who you used to be, replaced by a version of yourself that feels smaller, dimmer, more afraid. You are not meant to live under siege. Your room is supposed to be your sanctuary, not your battlefield, but if you will not guard it, you will have to fight to reclaim it. The change in the air is the beginning of that fight, and the choice is always yours. Dismiss it and surrender silently. Or recognize it and stand your ground before the battle moves closer. But be warned, once it does move closer, once it steps beyond the air and into your thoughts, your dreams, your emotions, it becomes much harder to drive it out. Harder, but not impossible. And in the next part, we will face that reality. Because once something has entered your space, the real question is not how to pretend it isn't there. It's how to make sure it never stays. During the day, you hardly notice. Everything feels ordinary enough. You move through familiar rooms, busy yourself with tasks. Let conversations fill the spaces that would otherwise feel too silent. Distraction is easy when the sun is out, when the noise of life drowns out the subtle, when the mind has too many places to run and hide. But at night, when the world goes quiet and you're left alone with nothing but yourself, that thin veil between you and everything else begins to weaken. It's then that you sense it, the shift, the difference, the presence you can't quite name but cannot deny. The night belongs to things unseen because your defenses fall naturally when darkness comes. You're tired, your mind softens, and the rational part of you that usually builds walls between what is and what could be starts to crumble. In that vulnerable space, things you would never notice in the daytime step forward, not loudly, but decisively. And when they do, they don't need to announce themselves with grand gestures. They simply fill the air, subtly weaving themselves into the fabric of your space until your own home no longer feels like it belongs entirely to you. There's a reason ancient traditions around the world warned against being careless at night. From the Celts, who spoke of thin places where the spiritual world leaked into the physical after sunset, to the indigenous shamans who knew that certain energies only traveled freely under the cover of darkness, the night has always been regarded not just as a time of rest, but as a time of heightened spiritual activity. Tolkien himself, with all his deep mythological understanding, built his most terrifying moments in Middle-earth under the shadow of night. Evil moves quieter when light retreats. It grows bolder when the noise of day no longer protects you. This is why you feel it strongest when you are lying there alone. It's not your imagination spinning out of control. It's the simple, brutal reality that without the distractions of daylight, you finally become aware of what was already there, what has been moving just at the edge of your senses, patiently waiting for the sun to set and your spirit to grow quiet enough to notice. The Watchers, the energies that do not wish you well, prefer the cover of darkness not because they need it to survive, but because you are simply easier to approach then. You are less guarded, less suspicious, less prepared. You have no noise to anchor yourself to, no endless list of tasks to keep your mind racing forward. You are still, and stillness, for all its beauty, can also be an invitation if you do not guard it properly. At night, the air carries more than just oxygen. It carries echoes. It carries memories. It carries energies both lingering and active that brush against the thin film of your consciousness as you drift between waking and sleeping. Some of these energies are harmless, barely noticeable wisps that dissolve like morning mist. But others are not so benign. Others stay. Others settle into the cracks you didn't realize had formed in your defenses. You felt it, the sudden sensation that someone is standing over you as you sleep. The irrational certainty that if you opened your eyes, you would see something staring back at you. The oppressive weight pressing down on your chest, making it hard to breathe, to think, to move. And no matter how hard you try to tell yourself it's just a bad dream, a sleep disorder, a figment of imagination. You know in the deepest, most instinctive part of yourself that it's more than that, because it's not a dream when the air itself turns against you. It's not your mind playing tricks when the room you know so well feels foreign, hollow, distorted. It's not coincidence when you wake at the same time night after night, heart racing, skin clammy, spirit uneasy. It's the natural consequence of leaving your energetic space unguarded while you sleep. And the ones who move through that vulnerability do not come with good intentions. They come to watch. They come to drain. They come to weaken what little awareness you have left, to pull you deeper into sleep, not the kind that restores, but the kind that makes you forget who you are, why you matter, and how much power you truly hold when you are fully awake. You see, spiritual warfare doesn't always start with obvious battles. It starts with small invasions, with moments where you second-guess your instincts, with nights where you feel the presence but convince yourself it's nothing. Every time you ignore the warning signs, every time you surrender a little more of your night to fear or denial, you give them more space to move. This is why nighttime vigilance isn't about paranoia. It's about sovereignty. It's about reclaiming your nights as sacred ground, instead of surrendering them to whatever chooses to pass through your home unseen. It's about understanding that the moment you let the night own you, you lose a piece of yourself that will take far more than a good night's sleep to recover. And make no mistake, the watchers notice when you notice. When you start taking back your nights, when you cleanse your space, when you pray, when you stand firm in your awareness, they feel it, they hesitate, they withdraw. Not because you have become dangerous in the way they are, but because you have become luminous in a way they cannot stand. Awareness is a light they cannot snuff out easily. And now that you are aware, truly aware, the rules of engagement have changed. You are no longer prey just because you are awake in the dark. You are no longer vulnerable just because you feel the weight of invisible eyes on your back. But this is just the beginning. Because now that the watchers have been challenged, now that your soul has stirred against the tide of darkness that sought to lull you into numbness, the game shifts. Their tactics change. The air was the first move. The watching was the second. Now comes the third, more subtle, more dangerous, the invitation to believe you are alone in this fight. And that is the next trap we must expose before it claims you. Because the greatest weapon the watchers have left is convincing you that no one else has ever felt what you're feeling now, that you are isolated, that you are powerless, that your awakening is nothing but madness. But it's not. And soon you'll see why. You've felt the weight in the air. You've recognized the unseen gaze. You've lived through the nights where the silence screamed louder than any noise ever could. And now, standing at the threshold between the visible and invisible, you must understand something that is both terrifying and empowering. You were not chosen at random. The watchers, those unseen presences that move in the dark, do not waste their energy on the empty, the hollow, the truly lost. They are drawn to the ones who carry something inside them, a spark, a resilience, a light that even when dimmed by exhaustion or grief, never fully goes out. It is you they see. It is you they want to reach, not to destroy in the obvious sense, but to distort, to weaken, to turn your awakening into confusion and your strength into silence. If you've sensed a presence you couldn't see, but your soul knew it was there, write in the comments, "I felt the unseen." Your awareness is your greatest shield. And here is the most painful truth. They often succeed, not by overpowering you, but by convincing you that you are alone. When the nights grow longer, when the feeling of being watched tightens its grip, when the weight on your chest makes it almost impossible to breathe, it's easy to believe that no one else has ever felt this way, that you are broken, that you are imagining things, that you are foolish for thinking there is a battle happening around you and inside you, that others would dismiss with a smile and a pat on the back. But that is the oldest trick in the book. Isolation is the favorite weapon of the invisible enemy. Because when you think you are alone, you stop reaching out. When you think you are alone, you stop fighting. When you think you are alone, you surrender without realizing you've laid down your sword. But listen closely. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And what you are experiencing is not a delusion. It is a war most have forgotten how to see. You were chosen for this awareness because your soul carries the memory of battles far older than this life. You carry the memory of standing when others fell, of resisting when surrender would have been easier, of keeping your light burning even when the night seemed endless. The Watchers see that. They always have. That's why the air grows heavy around you. That's why your sleep is disturbed. That's why your nights are filled with unseen eyes and whispers you can't quite hear. Because in you they recognize a threat. Not because you are violent, but because you are awake. Awakening is an act of rebellion against the darkness that feeds on unconsciousness. To be awake is to be dangerous to everything that relies on you staying numb, distracted, asleep. And so you must understand, the fight is not about beating them with anger or force. It's about refusing to go back to sleep. It's about refusing to believe the lie that you are powerless. It's about standing your ground night after night, even when the air turns heavy and the shadows lean closer. It's about becoming the light they hoped you would never remember you were, and you are remembering now. Every night you endure the weight and stay aware. You reclaim a piece of yourself. Every moment you recognize the presence without fear, you reinforce the barrier they cannot cross. Every breath you take consciously in the dark is a declaration of sovereignty. This soul is not for sale. You are reclaiming your home, not just the four walls around you, but the sacred space of your spirit. You are building a fortress of presence where before there was only vulnerability. And though the Watchers may linger, they will find no easy prey here anymore. Because you have remembered the most important truth. Your soul is not weak. Your awareness is not a curse. Your sensitivity is not madness. It is your armor. It is your gift. It is the evidence that you were born for battles most will never see, and that you were built to survive them. The Watchers will continue to move in the night. That is their nature. But now you move too, not as prey, but as sentinel, as guardian of your own sacred fire, as the one who stands awake while others dream their way into oblivion. You are not a victim of the dark. You are the light that forces it to remember what fear feels like. And so tonight and every night after, when you feel the weight return, when the air grows thick, when the unseen eyes press against your spirit, do not cower, do not hide. Stand, breathe, speak if you must, not to them, but to yourself, to the soul that fought through so many nights to bring you here. You are not alone, you are not defeated, you are not done, you are awakening. And the darkness is watching, but not as a predator watches its prey. It watches as a fading memory of a time when you were unaware. It watches in fear of what you are becoming. And it should be afraid, because you have seen the truth now. You have felt the shift. You have endured the weight, and you are still here, you are still standing, and you will not be moved. Thank you, truly, for walking this journey with me, for allowing yourself to see what most would rather ignore, for feeling what most would rather numb, for staying awake when everything around you whispers for you to fall asleep again. You are part of a lineage of silent warriors, of souls who rise in the night and reclaim the spaces forgotten by others. You carry a light that no darkness can claim, no matter how many times it tries, and as long as you keep that light burning, even if it's just a flicker some nights, you will never be alone. You were never meant to be, and now you never will be again.